You know me, I'm always out there to cause controversy. I don't know if this is a controversial statement or not, but I liked Bloodstained Curse of the Moon better than I like Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. I liked Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, I really did, but I don't know, something about it just felt a little off. But Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, I really liked that game. It nailed what it was going for. Just a classic platformer, I guess a Castlevania ripoff. Let's call it what it is. There's no shame in that. It was trying to take that classic Castlevania formula and bring it back today with retro 8-bit visuals. And I don't know, it just played really good, felt really well, had a good soundtrack. It's just a ton of fun. I really liked that game. So I was very excited to see that a sequel is coming out, and I have spent a lot of time with that sequel, and I'm very happy to say that I actually like this game better than the last one. Let's get this out of the way right at the start. If you didn't like Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, you're not going to like the sequel, because the sequel is pretty much more of the same, and that is not a bad thing in my eyes, because that's exactly what I wanted. I don't need any extra bells or whistles or anything like that. I just really loved that classic style experience that the first game gave you, and that's exactly what the second one does, except there's more of it. There's more to do, there's different characters, you have all kinds of unique abilities between those characters, and it's just a really, really solid platforming experience. So if you love that old school kind of feel and also that old school difficulty, then Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2 is definitely going to be for you. So I said I like the sequel better than the original. Why is that? Well, as in the first game, you could use multiple characters to play through a level, and each character had their own abilities, and that happens in Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2 as well. But I really feel like Inti Creates did an excellent job with making levels where you have to use these characters. In the first game, I pretty much stayed with one character as long as I could, and that was that. But Curse of the Moon 2 has level design where you're like, oh, this would be a lot easier if I use this other character, or this would be more fun if I went about it as this character. Or sometimes you see enemy placements and you're like, oh, I could just handle this a lot better if I just switched to this other person. And as you're going through levels, you'll see multiple opportunities to do that. Just situations where it might be easier to play as someone, but also opportunities for you to explore new parts of a level by using another character. So there's multiple instances where not only you're going to feel that it's your best option to switch between characters throughout a level, but opportunities where you won't be able to access stuff unless you switch to characters. So you're constantly switching on the fly, and that keeps the gameplay really varied. The really cool thing is the characters that you have here all feel like, on surface level, they would be unstoppable. You have one character who can jump really high and farther than everybody else, and you're like, well, why wouldn't I use them all the time? You have a character that can shoot a gun, so you can take out enemies from a distance, and you're like, well, this is perfect. Like, why would I bother going with anybody else? There's another character that's a dog in some kind of mech suit. And that character doesn't have any sub-weapons. All you do is fuel it up with magic, and then you have an invincibility ability where you can use up your magic to be invincible for as many hearts as you have. And you're like, well, this is great. I'll just load up on hearts and I'll blast through the whole game, no problem. But that's not how it works out, because every character is really well balanced with abilities that, or aspects that make them a challenge to use as well. So the giant mech character is giant. He's very hard to fit in certain spots, and enemies are able to hit him easier because he has a bigger hitbox. So yes, you can go invincible as long as you have enough hearts, but you're not going to have hearts all the time, and that'll run out. The character with a gun can shoot from far away and take out enemies without getting close, but he is very slow to shoot that gun. And also, he has very low health. Not one hit, 2 hits in most instances, and you're dead, so that's not going to be any good. So I just really like the way that these characters play out, because their abilities certainly help you in certain circumstances, but they have other drawbacks as well. So sticking with one of them is certainly doable, but it's going to be extremely challenging depending on who you pick. And the game wants you to see that using everyone together to make it through a level is the best way to go through it. These levels, by the way, they're fantastic. They're just really big and full of different branching paths, and sometimes you can go through them on the first try through, and other times you won't be able to access paths until you unlock other characters, which I really like because it gives you a reason to go back through and see what's there. You'll see, I believe it was in the first game, you'll see skeletons that are pointing to the quickest way through a level, and sometimes they'll point to a door that you can't access yet, so you have to go the longer way around. But when you get another character later on and you're going through the game again, you can go through that new path and see what it has to offer. So the level design here, yeah, it's just really great, full of great platforming sections. I just love the design of all the different locations. There's some really cool spots to see, like a swamp area, and it's like a museum area, and there's a ice town level. It's just really, really well done, really interesting environments. Things that stick out in my mind after I've been playing, and I was like, man, that was a really fun area to go through. Now, what is equal parts fun and not fun, but I mean not fun in a good way, is the challenge of the game. Holy Lord, I've obviously grown up on NES games, and I'm used to what people call the NES style of challenge or difficulty. I played plenty of games where, you know, your fingers feel like they're going to break off because they're gripped so tightly on the controller, and you don't know how you're ever going to be able to get past a certain boss or a certain level. Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2 certainly has that feeling. This game is difficult. I played through the first game pretty much no problem until the very end, and then there was only a little bit of a problem. This second game is much more difficult. I need to really stress that. I played on veteran mode. There's like I don't remember what the other mode's called, but there's like a beginner mode and a veteran mode, and veteran mode is like you've played 8-bit platformers before, you've played these kind of games, and I'm like, yeah, I've played hundreds of them, if not more than that. And I jumped in, I was like, ooh, this is a little difficult. So if you're excited for a challenge, yes, you should certainly get that in this game. The first, I want to say, 4 levels have some challenge to them, and then level 5 hits you. I believe it's a fire, well, it's a fire level. I believe it's level 5, but it's on fire, and the game is like, okay, I'm ready to kick your ass now. And I went into that level and I was like, oh my god, this is ridiculously challenging. And that challenge stayed through to the end of the game, if not grew a little bit more. So for some people that might be a turnoff. I want to stress again, there is a casual mode for you to use if you're worried about the challenge, but I like the challenge. But yeah, this game certainly put my skills to the test without a doubt. There's a lot of stuff thrown at you, and the challenges come from platforming sections, from enemy placement, and from bosses. You get challenged with every single area. The one thing I gotta say about the challenge is it's right there on the edge where you feel like it's unfair, but it's not unfair, which is so hard to do. There's plenty of games that you play where difficulty just seems so uneven, and you're like, this just isn't fun. But Curse of the Moon 2 does an excellent job of really pushing you to the limit, but giving you a little glimmer of hope. So there were certainly times where I was frustrated because I was like, God damn it, this is so tough. But I was like, but next time when I go and I could do it like this. So I never felt like I wanted to give up. I never felt like the game gave me too much. Like I said, it just pushed me to the limit, and I appreciate that. It's really interesting. That's really shown off in the game's bosses, especially later on, because some of the bosses you'll go into and you're like, I don't even see a way to not get hit here because there's so much going on, and the bosses are so big, and you're just overwhelmed at the start. But, you know, you go in a few times, you see what's going on, you see how things might work out. You're like, okay, if I switch to this character and do this pattern and then switch to another character when they start doing this attack, maybe I can make something work. And you piece it together. It's kind of like a puzzle, and when you pull it off, you're like, man, I feel like the best player in the world. It's really satisfying. So the challenge, I can't say enough about the challenge. They did such an excellent job here with making it extremely difficult, but not unfair. I also want to say that this isn't one and done. You're not going to play through the game once and be like, well, that's it. Without spoiling things, you will have a huge motivator to continue playing again after the game closes. A new option opens up, and I'm not usually one to take on those new options, but I was like, yep, definitely going through here again. And that time you play through, or the second time that you play through, is extremely different. It feels like a completely new game. You're going to go through the same stages, but you're going to have access to characters that will let you take paths that you couldn't take before. and you'll see all different layouts and enemies and all kind. You'll see portions of the level you have never seen before, so it feels like playing a new game. And right off the bat, the challenge that you had at the end of your first run through is there from the beginning this time around, so you're in for an even bigger challenge. And bosses are recycled this time around, but they have new attacks added on to what they did before, and new animations as well. So you're not going to get to a boss and be like, I know how to take this guy out. Things are different. There's going to be little tweaks that completely change how you have to handle the boss. Like a boss might, well, he's going to do all the attacks he did before, but he might throw in another attack that ends up lighting half the floor on fire, which means you can't stand in certain spots, and you're like, I don't even know what to do now. I don't know how to tackle this. So I can't say enough for the second run through, because it feels completely different. The challenge is amped up from your first time, and you can't approach things the same way, so it really feels new going through, and it doesn't feel like a rehash. Again, they did an excellent job. Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2 looks like an NES game, you know, pretty close to what an NES game could be. I'm sure it's doing some things an NES couldn't do, but you get NES vibes. If you like the way NES games look, then I think this is a gorgeous game. I personally really love the look of the game. I love the look of the first one. I love the use of shadows and limited colors to give characters depth and just make them interesting looking. I really think, as far as the NES style of visuals go, this is one of the best looking ones out there. I really love it. Animations are great and feel like they'd fit on the NES. Just everything about it just feels really good. I love this look to a game, so if you're into this look, you should be really happy with what you get. Same goes for the soundtrack. I need to give it another listen. I like the soundtrack as much as I did the first game. I don't know if I like it more, though, and to tell you the truth, I had a little trouble focusing on the soundtrack because I was having such difficulty making it through certain portions of the game where I was just really focused on playing and living rather than taking in the music. But after you go through areas a certain amount of times and you die so many times, you know, the tunes start to become more familiar. But yeah, I need to give the soundtrack another listen to overall. But there's no doubt it's a high-quality soundtrack. It's just as capable as the first game. And there's lots of tunes in there that are really enjoyable. I just need to give it more time to settle. But again, if you liked what you heard in the first game, you should really enjoy the new tracks here. I don't really often say this. I don't know that I've ever said it, but as far as Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 1 to 2, I feel like Curse of the Moon 2 is the perfect sequel. It does everything better than the first game, and there's more to it, and it's more challenging. It's just better in every way. I cannot think of a way where I'm like, yeah, the first game did this better, or I like this more in the first game. I got nothing. Everything here is bigger, better, more interesting, better laid out. It's more fun, and that's coming from me who loved the first game. So really, I got no complaints here. This is exactly what I wanted. When I saw the game was announced, I freaked out because I loved the first one so much, but it beat my expectations. And I haven't even touched on the two-player section or feature because I haven't got to try that out, but I can't even imagine going through this game with a second player. You're going to have somebody who you really trust to play alongside, because they're going to get in your way because this game is so challenging. I just can't imagine having somebody else in there. I don't know, maybe to make it easier. So I can't tell you about the second player, but obviously the game is built for solo play. The second player stuff is just thrown in there as a bonus. So if you're running through this and you're looking for the single player content, Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2 is an unbelievable sequel. It's really top notch from start to finish. Whole bunch of interesting things thrown in there. Like I said, there's a great reason to continue playing when the game finishes the first time. Don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, I love everything about this game. Excellent sequel, excellent job by Inti Creates, and now I hope there's a third one at some point. Alright, my friends, that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting. It's always appreciated. Also, a big thank you to those of you who support me on Patreon. Helps me do videos like this, helps with the site, the podcast, social media, all that good stuff. If you want to learn more about the Patreon, which is just $1, you can check out the link in the description below. But as I said, that is it for today. So I will see you next time.